Hi, I'm Heidi Whale-Nizaki, and I'm one of the CAPAS trainers for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And I'd like to give you a few tips on how to conduct a successful CAPAS reliability training virtually. So first of all, if you're going to do a virtual training, it is really more important than ever that you are prepared in advance. And so some things to think through and prepare in advance are how you're going to get materials to your trainees. I suggest that you put packets together, that they have their training manual, and that you arrange that there's maybe a place that they can pick up these packets, um, or if you're able to send them through the mail in advance, but so that you're sure everybody has the materials they need in front of them for the training. Um, Another thing to do in advance is really set very clear expectations for the trainees that they will need to be, and they will need to have a webcam, that they'll need to be visible for the training, that they'll need to be able to speak and interact in the training, um, and that that they're going to need to be able to mute themselves at times of when they're not interacting. Um, Chances are it's going to be too much to juggle if you are both the trainer and the IT tech support. And unless you have a very, very small group, chances are that somebody's going to have tech support needs, that they're not going to be comfortable or familiar with doing training virtually. And so if you can think through in advance and let your trainees know where to go for help if they're having issues getting logged in, issues with navigating once they are in. So think about who could you direct them to that would be able to assist. Ideally, if you're able, it's great to always have a co-host for your training, somebody who's actually going to be in the training with you, but not necessarily participating. Wonderful if you're able to have a co-trainer and then you could just sort of um, shift off responsibilities back and forth. But even if you don't have that as an option, if there's somebody that could be part of the training and provide technical support, monitor the waiting room, and let people in if they get bumped out and have to come back in, help monitor the chat box and let you know and bring things to your attention if something's put out there in chat. Another tip is to make your training as multidimensional as possible. Really think about how you can use as much sensory stimulation that you can so that your training is not really flat and it's really fatiguing to just kind of stare at slides on a screen for hours at a time. It's not a good way to learn. We really know with learning that the more areas of the brain that are activated during the learning process, the more that information is retained. So think about how to add in music, how to add in color, videos, clip art. And to be clear, I don't mean to make things cluttery. You'll want to have really a neutral, not very busy background behind you, and on your slides have them be rather neutral, but then have elements that in a paced way appear and then disappear before something new is added when you're sharing slides and things like that. Create exercises that really direct the participants to fully participate. So think about how can you ask for emojis or reactions. Think about utilizing chat. If you're using Zoom, utilize the breakout rooms for discussion. Set up polls and have people participate with polls. But there's a lot of resources online. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, pun sort of intended, where you can find these icebreakers. They're colorful, they move, and again, it's just a way to add more dimension. Think in advance about your lighting, and just make sure that people can see your eyes. That's really the most important thing. And if you can find some time, there's some great videos on YouTube, and just do a search on YouTube and you'll see a lot of resources there. There are a couple of materials I'd like to show you examples of. Maybe it will help you think of some ideas of your own. So I'm sharing my screen now. And one thing that I did is I took all of the standard CAPAS reliability slides and I adapted them and put them on new backgrounds. And what I really want to draw your attention to that's really important is I added the copyright information along the bottom. You can find the copyright information in the guideline to using CAPAS and PECFAS that is put out by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. I did use color in some of my slides, but what I actually did is I found two different templates and I merged slides from backgrounds from each of them. It's easier to look at a dark background for longer periods of time. So most of my slides I put on a really dark background, and then I just added elements in so there appears to be kind of color that's moving throughout the presentation. Here's another example, just again, use of clip art to sort of anchor and visually cue the point of the message or the grouping on each slide. And some of my slides, I found a little, some clip art that moved a little bit. So nothing too distracting, something that's kind of repetitive so that it catches people's attention, but then it doesn't keep their attention focused there while you're talking and delivering your content. Another strategy is using clip art and sort of layering it so that you have, again, the perception of depth. And here's just another example of alternating those templates and then bringing some points to attention with using the color again. So then I took the quizzes and put those in slides. And the way I did that is I started out with each quiz that the first few items, I put one quiz item per slide and put the item up there and then asked the class how would they rate that item, what score or what rating would it have. And there's different ways to get their feedback for that. You could ask people to type it in a chat box. You could set up a poll ahead of time, and this is kind of a neat way to use polls because then you can share the results. And I always kind of encourage people, because if you use the polls in Zoom, the poll function, it'll tell you how many people have responded, but not who has responded. So sometimes that helps people have a little bit of courage when I can say, like, I can see that there's still 4 of you out there that haven't answered yet. I'm not sure who you are because I can't see names, but I'll give you another 10 seconds to think what you think the answer might be. And inevitably, I see the answers and I see the full percent or close to the full percent of the class participate that way. Another way you can ask for answers is just simply asking people, hold up, 0, 10, 20, and 30, and hold up your fingers to show what you think the answer should be. And so it's fun to just kind of mix that up because it keeps people engaged and they're ready to respond, and knowing how to respond, it doesn't get old. And then I use the feature in PowerPoint to advance and add information in, and then show the actual answer and share that. So the way I do the quizzes is I do the first several items that way, and then I have the quizzes provided in the packets ahead of time, and then I direct them to go finish the quiz. And usually I do that in breakout rooms. I'm able to do that with the Zoom Pro account and encourage them to talk through the quizzes together, and then come back and I'll have the answers up for the rest of the items on a slide when they come and rejoin the main room. And so then I suggest that they check themselves and bring up any questions. Okay, if you're doing the advanced interactive booster training, a tip for using the Jeopardy is that if you have more than one monitor, you can have you can screen share, as I'm doing here with you, the scoreboard, and then pulling up here then just your PowerPoint view, And so if you're able to have both of those open and you're just sharing the scoreboard with your class, what I found was easier than having the dollar amounts that were in there. The way it's set up is I just made everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I had the groups come up with team names, but then I just designated the teams like A, B, C, and then I was able to add who won, who actually correctly answered each item, and put it in here, and you see it instantly shows up on the board that is visible to the class. So then in the end, I just tally who got the most correct responses. Another tip with that is having people respond by typing their response in the chat, and then it's actually easier than doing it with the bells. You don't have to listen and try to figure out who went first and with the correct answer. It's just whoever has the correct answer pop up in the chat box first is the one who gets the point. If you are going to share videos, it's helpful to have them queued up ahead of time. And then in Zoom, there's a function for sharing that is optimize share for full screen video clip. And in your control panel, you go all the way over to the right while you're screen sharing, there's a little ellipse, and click on that. And now near the bottom, it will give you that option. When you use that option, it makes it much more clear for your participants to see the video, and the sound comes through so much better. Be prepared that you will no longer be able to see your participants' thumbnails during the time that you're showing the video, but you will be able to still hear them and see them in the chat. When it comes to taking the reliability exam, I instruct the class to stay on camera and to turn off and mute themselves, and to turn off the sound on their computer, so they also can't hear what's going on, but that they can look up and see me on screen and I can see them. Then whenever anybody has a question, they just turn their sound back on, unmute themselves, and we're able to chat. I've provided the participants in advance with a template to write their scores on. You don't have to create a template. If you do, make sure that you add copyright information on the bottom of it. But you could just have people just type information straight out in an email. I've even had people who still use the forms for their paper answer sheets, and they take a picture of it with their cell phone. But the important instruction that works the most smooth is that instruct them that every time they finish a vignette, they email to you the answer. The way I'm able to keep everything straight, and that the first time I did this was the trickiest part, was I just put everybody in a Excel template, and then I created a tab for each person, and then each time they sent me a vignette, I first download it and put it into a folder with their name on it, so that I can go back and I've kept the copies of each of their responses that way. And I mark on the grid, and that's all this is a virtual adaptation of the grid, what their difference was from their score from the intended answer. I also would color code and just color the cell if I flagged that I had not yet provided feedback, and that they hadn't gotten back to me to talk through the difference between their score and the intended score. And so then if I was done with that, I say I talked to Ron Weasley here, I could change it to green to show that, yeah, I had wanted, that we actually did do that feedback. I hope this was helpful. Good luck training in a virtual world, and hope you have some fun with it. Take care.